Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Good morning and Happy New Year. I'm Peter Andre alongside the wonderful Ellie Costello, and this is Saturday Morning Live, and it's going to be a beaut.
Yes, it is. It's good to have your company this morning to kickstart the new year with an action-packed show. So let's start with more than 1,000 properties across England have been flooded amid the heavy downpour this week, with hundreds of flood warnings and alerts still in place. We want to know, have you been affected? How are your homes looking? If you are in those areas, let us know how you're getting along, and if you are flooded, we are sending our thoughts out to you. It's not the best way to start the new year, is it?
No, absolutely not. New year, new you. We'll be talking all things new year, resolutions from fitness changes or maybe neuroscience and modern psychology that can provide the answer instead, possibly. We'll see. Or maybe it's time for relationship changes. What's the secret to finding love this year? Our guests will offer their expertise on it all.
And it's 12th night. Is it time to take down the Christmas decorations? Well, technically today is the last day to do so. Have you taken yours down? Let us know. gbnews@gbnews.com.
But before we do anything else, Aaron Armstrong has all your news headlines. Take it away, Aaron.
Good morning to you. It's 10:01, Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Almost 250 flood warnings remain in place across England and Wales as conditions continue to cause travel problems. The Met Office is predicting the wet weather has largely passed, but water levels remain high and colder temperatures are on the way over the next few days. Health Security has issued a yellow cold weather alert. Meanwhile, data from the Environment Agency shows almost every river in England has reached exceptionally high levels, with some records. Our GB News East Midlands reporter Will Hollis has this update.
The area behind me should usually be grass and a parkland with the beautiful River Trent in the background, but of course that's not what it looks like today. Extensive flooding here along the River Trent for a lot of small villages, but also for larger towns, including here in parts of Newark-on-Trent. This is Tolney Lane. It should be a clear open road, and the flooding goes for around 100 metres or so as far as I can see. About 1,000 homes across England have been evacuated over the last few days, and a major incident has been declared by Nottinghamshire County Council here in the East Midlands.
Prince Andrew had daily massages during weeks spent at Jeffrey Epstein's home in Florida, according to the convicted paedophile's housekeeper. Newly released court documents include testimony from Juana Lessie, who said both Prince Andrew and then-wife Sarah, Duchess of York, were friends with Epstein, and now convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. The unsealed files are part of a civil lawsuit against Maxwell, who's serving a 20-year sentence for recruiting underage girls for Epstein. The Duke strenuously denies wrongdoing. Meanwhile, The Telegraph is reporting that King is preparing to withdraw private funding for the security operation at Prince Andrew's home. The Chancellor's cast doubt on further tax cuts before the next election. A 2% reduction on national insurance comes into force today, which Jeremy Hunt claims will benefit 27 million people and save a family with two earners nearly £1,000 a year. However, the government has frozen the income tax threshold, pushing many into higher tax brackets, offsetting the benefits. And the Chancellor admits further cuts are unlikely.
It was right to support families through COVID and through the cost of living crisis. And yes, taxes had to go up in that period, but we are a Conservative government that wants to bring down taxes because we recognise that families are finding life really tough. It's the start of a process. As Chancellor, if I can afford to go further, I will. I don't yet know if I can, but we want to do this because it helps families and it also helps to grow the economy.
However, the chair of the Labour Party, Annalise Dodds, says many people are still paying for previous Tory failures.
We've seen, unfortunately, a huge cost of living crisis in our country. And of course, this is just one aspect of it. As you say, 1.6 million homeowners who are going to be facing an average of £2,880 more on their mortgages when they remortgage. Now, of course, some of that damage, unfortunately, is already done. You know, a large amount of it, sadly for many people, is down to what happened with that Liz Truss crashing of the economy. We immediately saw that feeding in.
The Metropolitan Police is investigating potential fraud offences committed during the Horizon IT scandal. It relates to the wrongful prosecution of hundreds of sub-postmasters by the Post Office, which in some cases led to prison sentences and bankruptcy. More than 700 people were convicted after flawed accounting software in the Horizon system made it appear money was missing from their branches. Scotland Yard says it's looking at potential fraud arising from money recovered from sub-postmasters as a result of prosecutions or civil actions. Hundreds of people, including some still in Afghanistan, are waiting to resettle in the UK over 2 years after the Taliban's takeover. Nearly two-thirds eligible under the Afghan Citizens Resettlement Scheme are yet to be relocated. causing concern about the slow process. The Foreign Secretary, David Cameron, says 2 flights of eligible Afghans left in December, leaving around 700 still in the country. And a window on an Alaskan Airlines plane exploded mid-flight, forcing the aircraft to perform an emergency landing. And the National Transport Safety Board is investigating the incident. The plane had to land shortly after taking off from the US state of Oregon. The aircraft landed safely back in Portland with 170 passengers and 6 crew members. You can see some of the damage from the inside of the plane from the social media footage. The airline says it's temporarily grounding all 65 of its 737 Boeing MAX 9 aircraft. This is GB News. We're on TV, on digital radio and on your smart speaker too. That's it for the moment. I'll be back with more a little later.
Thanks, Aaron, and welcome to Saturday Morning Live. Got a packed show for you today, haven't we, Pete?
We sure do. Later on in the show, we're going to be joined by a very exciting guest. He's a good friend of mine, former member of one of the UK's biggest boy bands. Let's see if you remember this classic. Yeah. And you know what? It's not even just what he did in the 90s, it's what he's doing now that's so important.
Yes.
He's helping a lot of the youth in this country, so you'll hear about that.
Yeah, it's an
really
amazing
great
story.
guy.
Yeah, so do make sure that you tune in. That's going to be about 11:30, and it is going to be about his move away from the music, so do stay tuned for that. Now, the weather has been truly awful this week, hasn't it? More than 1,000 properties across England have flooded amid heavy downpours, and we've got more to look forward to as temperatures look set to plummet this weekend.
A cold weather alert has been issued by the UK Health Secretary Agency, and temperatures set to create further problems.
Well, over the last few days, hundreds of homes across the country have been devastated by floodings following a powerful storm and then a week of really heavy rainfall. There have been over 250 flood warnings in force ever since.
We're joined now by GB News East Midlands reporter Will Hollis, who is deep in the action. Will, what is going on there? It looks tricky.
Yes, well, it's usually quite a pretty place living by the River Trent. This is a little public bridleway where you'd expect people to walk their dogs. But when there's flooding right next to the River Trent, it's not a good place to live. From the River Trent, it's spilled right over into this public bridleway and across the fields on the side of it. If you just look over to my left-hand side, you can see where there are usually benches where people will sit and enjoy themselves. This is the last place you want to be right now. In about 100 metres away, that's where the River Trent should be, and it's hard to know where the beginning of it is and where it ends. There are around 1,000 homes that have been evacuated across the UK right now, many of them here in the East Midlands or across the Midlands and East Anglia as well. Here in Nottinghamshire, a major incident has been declared. It's been in place for the last 2 days and it is still in effect. There is a massive response, particularly from the local district council, who say they've been delivering medicine, they've been delivering supplies for babies, as well as helping people to escape through that multi-agency local resilience forum response. That includes the fire rescue service, the police, as well as the local councils. Now, what we're being told now is that in some parts where there has been major flooding, the water is now starting to drop, but the Environment Agency still has more than 200 flood warnings in place. That means that people are urged to make sure that they are safe if they are in an area where there is flooding, in places that are by the River Trent, where it is likely that they are to flood. They're asking people to get out while it is still safe, while most of the rain has stopped now across the country. Storm Henk starting to become a little bit of a memory. The effects are still causing a lot of trouble for people in this part of the country.
Will Hollis there for us in Nottingham. Thank you very much indeed. And looks like very good wellies you've got there, and thank goodness.
I thought you were going to say very good weather.
No. Well, at least it looks like it's dried up a little bit, but obviously a huge clean-up operation. Let's welcome in our panel at this point, shall we? We've got the columnist, author and presenter Tonya Buxton, the comedian and presenter Tommy Sandu, and Showbiz reporter Stephanie Tecci with us this morning. Very good to see you all this morning. Now, I wanted to start with the flooding story because the Labour Party have accused Rishi Sunak of being asleep at the wheel over this. Tonya, what do you make of those comments?
To a certain extent, I think he's right. You know, what's been happening is that, and contrary to this, the weather's not changing that much. We've had these rains before, but what's happened is we've overbuilt up things, so there's no runways for the water. We've stopped dredging all the lakes and the rivers, and so it can make a difference up to 5 feet if you dredge a river or if you don't dredge a river. So this could all be preventable, but they've been saving money, and they're saying that it's not ecological beneficial to dredge rivers. You know, the jury's out. You know, there needs to be serious discussions about that because you're saving people's homes. So yes, I don't think it's Rishi. I think it's the government that have been in place for the past few years have not taken this seriously. They're building, yes, a housing crisis, but you've got to look at where the water's going to run when you do that and if the rivers are able to cope with the water.
And for people who have lost their homes, Tommy, I mean, to see people going out and dredging rivers would help them even in their minds alone, just to see that something is being done to prevent this happening year after year.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I think for a lot of these people, and again, when you read the articles and you read how it's affected people all over the country, people from the north are saying this happens all the time. But the fact that it's hit the south now, maybe the nation will wake up. Maybe the governments will do something because it's affecting
and that's wrong
the south.
in itself,
It is wrong. It's hugely wrong. But, you know from being a property owner that this is going to have effects to their insurance, have effects to, their claims. I'm sure people are probably still dealing with claims from the floods from last year or the year before, and there's still effects of that, and yet here we are again. So it must feel like Groundhog Day in the most depressing way.
Absolutely. And Steph, it's the emotional turmoil for these families, isn't it?
It happens year after year, and it's just sad that as a country we're never fully prepared for it. And I think this is why unfortunately, people are blaming Rishi, but it's like the government really do need to pull up their socks on this and realise that, you know what, especially with climate change, floods are going to be occurring more often.
You know, I'm going to beg to differ on the climate change thing. I mean, you know, it's a lot of it is out. I mean, it used to be global warming, now it's climate change. We've always had, like you said, Tommy, in the north especially, these type of rains have happened before. It's not new. It's just that we've changed the dynamics of the earth. You know, and that's one of the things that's changing. And that's why there's so much more flooding. It's not necessarily just the weather.
But the scientists always like to link it to climate change, and they
that's a big buck industry, you know, Steph.
It's
a big buck industry.
But they say it's going to be happening more and more
so we need
and
to be
more
ready.
due to climate change. So we do need to be ready. But on the emotional perspective, I guess what I love about America is when there's natural disasters, you always see the president out there and about. And the Lib Dems are saying, where is Rishi? Rishi hasn't gone out to visit these people, and that's why people are getting annoyed with him. And that's
have his wellies on with Will Hollis.
He should. We've got a GB News reporter there. Where is our Prime Minister?
He'd have designer wellies. He's had some really good ones. I'm just saying, his wellies, they're not going to be the average market ones like I had. They'll be like some cool brand.
That'll be the good stuff.
Yeah, let's see what they are.
Well, let's change tone a little bit, shall we? Because we had a devastating story yesterday, didn't we? The passing of Derek Draper, who you knew personally, didn't you? And you know Kate Garraway.
Well, I know Kate very well. I think this story, what's so sad about this is that we feel like we've gone through this past few years with them both. And, of course, this happened since COVID. And it's been like the real story of COVID, if you think about it. Very, very sad end. And you know, Kate's just such a beautiful person.
It's heartbreaking, and it's just her tenacity has just inspired us all. You know, when it looked bleak for Derek during those 13 months when he was in hospital, she never left his side. And in that statement that she released yesterday, she said that she was holding his hands in those long last hours. And you just think she always had optimism that he was going to make a recovery. And the public feel it. Like, I found myself shedding tears yesterday because we've watched the 2 documentaries she's put out. She's put 2 books where she's just been really open and honest about this battle with long COVID. COVID. He didn't die from long COVID. He died from a heart attack, which unfortunately he suffered in early December. But it's still been 4 years of a lot of heartache, a lot of mental turmoil and physical turmoil for the family.
And they've got children as well, haven't they?
Yeah,
Steph?
2 kids.
I remember. Yeah.
And it's just not a way to start the year. And I just hope that she's getting all the support she needs. And I think his case was very rare. Doctors say he was like one of 5 people where COVID has had this kind of effect on him. And it is really heartbreaking.
Absolutely. I mean, you know Kate personally. I mean, she's been so devoted, hasn't she?
Yeah, we had a lot of chats, sometimes backstage on This Morning, sometimes on GB News. Whenever I would see her, we'd have talks, and she would say how difficult things were, but she never ever really showed that to people. She just stayed strong, always smiling. As you see her, is exactly what she's like. And such a kind, nice person.
And to do a job where you're on national TV, knowing what's going at home, that takes a lot of bravery.
And for anyone who's ever had to look after someone who's, you know, coming close to end of life or is that critical, it's one thing being the person who's affected by the illness. It's another thing having to be the strong person by their side. That and the toll it'll take on her, on Kate, and even now, you know, now that he's passed, her kind of duties aren't over. The pain lives on, and yes, I think it's only right that we take a moment to kind of offer some strength and some positivity and well wishes, because I don't know how you get through something like that. Her life, sadly, will never be the same again.
No. Well, I was just saying, let's not forget the kids, because, of course, they, you know, what this would have done for them, the process of seeing their dad unwell and then now going through this process, it's got to be. And then now Kate has to be mum as well. So she's wife, but she's mum and she's dad now.
That's what they're saying is keeping her strong at the moment, her children, and knowing that she has to be strong for them as well.
She's just an incredible lady, isn't she? So we send all of our love to Kate Garraway and the entire family. Our thoughts are with them at the moment. Tonya, I want to have a look at a story in the Mail that's caught our eye this morning. This is from Penny Morden, who says, let's build a memorial to Navy slave trade busters. And this has a personal tie to your family, doesn't it?
It does, actually. So Lord Wilberforce, who is the person that we give all the credit to for getting rid of the slave trade and you know, worked so hard. That's what the British should be known for, working hard to abolish the slave trade. His side man was Lord Buxton, who is related to my husband. So, and their portrait's up at the Portrait Gallery. And he is a descendant of... my husband is a descendant of Buxton. So, you know, and I really love what Penny's doing. You know, the reality is there are still 50 million people being slaves today in the world. So let's stop with the apologising and get on with stopping those people from being slaves. Let's stop what's going on now. And Britain is not like America. You know, we have a very multicultural, diverse. There is, you know, I have too many black friends, and I live in this world. And the racism in Britain is the best place to be. It really is the best place to be. So stop getting our children to feel that they've got inherent guilt and all of this rubbish and move on. And let's be proud of what we did to abolish slavery.
Well, that's what Penny's talking about, because when we talk about slavery, it seems like too much of a sensitive topic for Brits to discuss, where Americans, they want to protest, they want to have it out there, where British people, we have that kind of thing. We know it's there, but we don't want to address it. And I feel like it's time to get rid of the controversy. Like, let's all educate ourselves. Even as black people, I think for black people, like for me, I didn't really know that Britain was heavily involved in ending the slave trade. All I learnt about in school was Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and it needs to be a more well-rounded topic for any colour.
Many British sailors lost their lives. Fighting to end slavery. You know, so there should be a monument.
But obviously we can't forget that a lot of people that have been through it, people's families that have been through it, the trauma stays forever.
But what do you mean, the slavery?
Yeah, of course.
But the trauma is... I do think that maybe in Britain, you have no one living who was a slave. You know, the slave trade that's still going on then.
But if you...
I think we've got to start to be more positive, more proactive, and the victim kind of culture that we're trying to instill in people, it takes you nowhere. It has no positives
I do agree with that, but at the same time, I do realise I personally don't like to say I'm a victim of being a slave or whatever, but then I do meet other black people who very much still hold that trauma, and then I will never kind of dismiss them in that sense. I say it's valid because it's each to their own. Some people do feel like it happened to their family and they do carry it from generation to generation. Black people are still paying for the ramifications of slavery today. So we can't ignore that in that sense when people say it, but I do believe the conversation needs to move from victimhood to how we can move on as a society.
Tonya, I get your point as well, but what I'm saying is that people that have gone through war, people that have gone through cultural things that have happened in our cultures, you know, generations back are hurt by that. So, of course, it does filter through. We've got to remember that side of it as well. But I also think we have to look at the positives of what's happening now.
Yeah. OK. Yeah. Thank you so much, all three of you. Really good to see you this morning, and we'll be catching up with you later on in the show. Now, with January in full swing, do you know how much vitamin D you need to get through the darker months? Well, we're going to be talking to a doctor to get to the bottom of that.
But up next, we're talking about 12th Night and Christmas decorations. So will you be abiding to the rules and taking them down or not? I haven't. Long.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Good morning and welcome back. The time is 24 minutes past 10, so it's time to dive into the inbox now and see what you've been saying at home. We asked you earlier about Christmas decorations because it is 12th night today, isn't it? So technically this is the last day that you should have been taking down your Christmas decorations. Have you taken yours down? No.
No, but can I just explain?
Why? Tell me why.
So my wife, she wants to do it because she knows where she wants to put the balls.
Yeah. Oh.
That really did not sound great.
She knows where she likes to put the balls, yeah.
Yeah, she does. She likes to, handle them a certain way. Anyway, so I'm like, well, but you're working. Shall I do it? No. So it's going to be... I said, well, at least we're early for next Christmas. We'll just keep them up.
Keep them up. Might just be easier. Well, Jacqueline says, my Christmas ends on Boxing Day. They're all taken down and put away at that point. Then a quick lick of paint, all fresh for the new year. Well, that is very organised. But I also feel like it's the end of Christmas. It's too soon.
It is too harsh, because whatever's said and done, once all the decorations come down, once all the lights come down, all the baubles come down, I've done it. I'm a stickler for 12th night, absolutely.
Are you? So they have to be down by
today. And unlike Emily, I delegate. So when I'm at work, I come home and it's done.
I'm fine
That's how
with that.
I want it done.
Delegate to me.
But it is. There's an emptiness when the decorations come down.
It does feel quite sobering, doesn't it? When you see all those decorations.
Yeah, exactly. It's like party's over.
Yeah,
it's like coming back and when you come back from holiday and they put the suitcases away, like, oh, that's it, we're done.
Yeah.
We're now back to reality.
It's when the Mariah Carey song stops playing. It's that the day after Christmas, you cannot hear another Christmas song and you'll be fine. But I get the decorations still make you feel part of the...
They make you feel warm and cosy, don't they?
Yeah.
And Paul says he didn't even put them up this year. One year he didn't take them down till May. Sounds like you.
What?
I got quite attached to my tree by the side of the TV. I understand that. My living room looks a lot better.
Right. Anyway, moving on.
That was almost so bad. Good.
Yes.
You got one giggle there. Very good, very good.
Epiphany, or Three Kings Day, marks the end of the 12 days of Christmas for most people in the UK. Traditionally, today is the last day to take down the Christmas decorations, which is exactly what you've said. I don't know why I've just repeated it.
Yeah, but it's a very important thing to talk about. So have you taken yours down already, or are you trying to hold on to the last of the festivities? That is what Tony Maguire has been out and about asking people in Glasgow.
Yeah.
Oh wow, no I haven't.
Have you not? No. What's taking you? Just busy life?
Busy life, and I'm not ready to say goodbye yet because it's a very depressing month, isn't it, January?
It is.
No.
And why is that?
Because somebody volunteered to do it and I'll let them fulfil that promise.
I didn't put up a tree this year, but I have decorations.
And they're still up?
And they're still around. So, when I put them up, I thought those would be easier to take down, but then I just didn't.
I come from Hamilton and I had a beautiful big tree there. It was the stars and the baubles on it, on the tree.
I think there's a lot up because I think people are a bit hacked off and don't want to take them back down.
Well, let's head somewhere now where it's Christmas every day. It's the Yuletide Cafe in Ironbridge. It's the UK's first all-year-round Christmas cafe. Let's speak now to the owner there. Very good to see you this morning, Kim. So tell us about the Yuletide Cafe. It's Britain's first and only, I believe.
Yes, so we are the first and only Christmas cafe in the UK. I've been open 3 months now here with the cafe, but the Christmas shop existed for 3 years down the road, so we relocated and thought we'd do mince pies and Christmas cake all year round. So it was a massive hit. I couldn't believe how busy it was. The amount of Christmas cake that we served was just immense. So yeah, the 12th night doesn't include us because obviously we keep Christmas all year round, and we went and got loads of Christmas decorations for the whole year the other day. So we've ordered all our stock for the year. So we'll get really nice goodies through the year here too, which will be fab.
Do you get people from overseas coming in? Because obviously Christmas is at different times. Well, it's not at different times, but you know what I mean.
Different days, right?
Different days.
Yes.
Do you get sort of people from overseas and yeah, go on, carry on.
Yes, because we're in Ironbridge, we get a lot of tourists as well. So, and obviously I always get lots of different stock through the year. So all the tourists that come from overseas, they will come and get a an Ironbridge decoration for them to take home, because I think that's the new thing now, where wherever everyone goes, they'll get a little decoration for the tree. I do it myself. I bought one the other day in London. When we went to London, I was like, I'll get another decoration. So I think that's what people tend to do now, and they buy for their friends and their family as well. So we do get a lot of people overseas. We have had a lot of people come, especially to Ironbridge, to come to the Christmas shop. We had a big party from Essex the other day. They absolutely loved it. They all had afternoon tea. So it's been a massive hit. It's been really good. It was very tiring, but we loved it. It was amazing. And I'm glad I moved, because I think, you know, the afternoon tea shop and the Christmas shop complement each other. So people will have their afternoon tea. We serve that alongside our daily menu, and then they'll go and buy a decoration as well to remember their time here.
Oh, Kim, it sounds absolutely wonderful, a wonderful Christmas time, if you will. What is it about the people that come into your shop? How do you make them feel? Because we've just been talking in the studio about the warmth and the joy of Christmas and having the decorations up and how lovely it makes you feel inside. Is that the feeling that you think you give to your customers when they spend time in your shop and have afternoon tea with you?
Yes, 100%. It's got such a nostalgic Christmassy feel. It's a Grade 2 listed building, so we've got lots of little rooms, and we've got a little room upstairs, some tables in the actual shop, and it just feels really Christmassy. We play Christmassy music all year round, so, you know, it feels like Christmas when you come in the summer. If you come in July, you can have Christmas cake, and it just feels amazing, really Christmassy.
Well, what about the music? Like, because that's the thing for me. The music's great around Christmas time, but the minute it's the 26th of December, it's almost like you just don't want to hear the Christmas songs anymore, but the build-up is great. So what happens in there? Is it All I Want for Christmas? And I guess Last Christmas doesn't make any sense because it's constantly Christmas. I'm really confused by the music side of this. What are you playing?
So we play a bit of everything. It depends. We do play a lot of the old classics, and sometimes we'll put just a bit of Christmas jazz on. And people do say to us, "Oh, do you get sick of listening to Christmas music all year round?" And we actually, no, we don't, because we're busy. We don't really notice it.
Don't get into a story with
yourself singing along to it sometimes. But yeah, people love it. It's not Christmas,
don't get into a story.
You like Christmas music, is it?
It does sound fantastic. Be fair. I love your enthusiasm. You're awesome.
Yeah, she's so passionate. Kim Warren, thank you so much for showing us around your Christmas cafe there. That's the Yuletide Cafe in Ironbridge, if anyone's close and wants to check that out. What do you two make of this, Tommy and Tonya?
I love it. This is quite... It's quite an American-y kind of thing. You know, where you go to the States and you have, like, I know there's like a mum cafe where it's like Mother's Day every day, and people take their mums there, they put little Polaroids up of their mum and from the restaurant. I like things like that. So here you've got a little slice of Christmas action all year round, and I think it's great, and I think you can. I was just working out throughout the year, I thought, for all the people that work in the service industry that can't do Christmas properly at December, or people that work in shifts, they could do their Christmas dinner throughout January. You could almost do romantic February, Valentine's-y, Christmassy stuff. June the 25th would be halfway to Christmas, so you could do a little something around there. I thought, she's got enough. I was just working out a business model. I think, she's got enough there.
You've been busy there.
Yeah, I was just kind of, can it work? But it'd be nice. Also, if you just want a good roast dinner, that's what a Christmas thing is. And Indian restaurants are Indian all year round, so why can't you have a Christmas restaurant?
Do they have turkey all year round? You've got to think of this now. What about turkey?
But they've got Christmas cake. And the thing is, I'm a real fan of Christmas cake. I know it's a kind of one of, it's like Marmite, isn't it, Christmas cake? Yeah. I love Christmas cake or Christmas pudding. So if I can have that all year round, I'd be very happy.
Do you think this could catch on, Tonya? Would you be paying a visit? No.
No, shall I tell you why? Because I do love Christmas, and I love the build-up, and I love all about Christmas. And I think, I mean, you never know. Maybe in July, if you're feeling a bit bluesy and you want to be cheered up, then you kind of go there to cheer yourself up. But I like the cyclic nature of Christmas, and you know, the build up to the winter and then Christmas.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one. Tonya and Tommy, stick with us. You're going to be with us throughout the programme.
I love it. Right, coming up, we're going to be talking all things New Year. Is it always New Year, New Me?
Yes, from finding your new fitness plans to finding love. We're going to be unpicking it all. That's next.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show, every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with me and Pete, and thank you so much for your company this morning.
Yeah, let's see what you guys have been saying. So, Gavin says, I took my Christmas decorations down on the 2nd of January. Karen says, we didn't put ours up, we went to Dubai instead.
Ah, a bit like you. You spent Christmas abroad as well, didn't you?
She said Dubai to England. Shocking, isn't it? I've got to... Yeah, anyway, let's keep going. Martin says, the season of Christmas actually ends... By the way, yes, I did, but it wasn't Dubai. But anyway, we can talk about that later.
Yeah, yes. We will talk about
that. The season of Christmas actually ends with Candlemas on the 2nd of February. He's not the only one that says that, actually. Do you want to read what Chris says?
Yeah, every day is a school day at GB News. So this is from Chris, who says, if you don't take your decorations down by 12th night, the tradition is you should leave them until Candlemas, which is February the 2nd. The superstition is that leaving them up beyond these dates or taking them down earlier brings bad luck. Well, who knows? Who knows?
I mean, what if the 2nd of February comes and you've had to work and you forgot?
For me, that's a little bit late. I feel like, yeah, February might be a little bit too late. But do let us know what you make of that. It is 12th night, or yesterday was 12th night. You should have taken them down by now. Let us know.
It's a couple of days between friends.
Let us know what you think. Now, it is January. We're talking about New Year, new us, the excitement from pre-Christmas and that feeling that the year has faded. Well, we're left with January, aren't we?
January is renowned for being the most depressing month of the year. It's probably because it goes for about 254 days.
It does.
And the lack of sunshine and vitamin D in the UK doesn't help.
Yes, but it turns out over a third of Brits are actually in the dark about vitamin D and how it's not just January when we should be taking those supplements.
Joining us now is GP from the Health and Food Supplements Information Service, Dr. Nisa Aslam. How are you?
Very good to see you this morning. So as Brits, are we actually deficient in vitamin D? Should we be doing something to get more in our system?
So absolutely. So our new report that we've published on the HSIS website reveals that, yes, we are deficient as a nation. And as you said, Peter, it's because we rely on sunlight to make vitamin D in our skin. And we don't get much sunlight in the UK, particularly in the winter months. So that's a big barrier to forming vitamin D. You can get vitamin D from certain foods, so oily fish, eggs, but as a nation, again, we don't love eating oily fish, so again, that's a barrier to getting enough vitamin D. So as Brits, we are prone to a deficiency, particularly in the winter months.
And what about the talk constantly about you have to wear sun cream all the time and, you know, put factor 50 on your face if you're going outside? Does that stop some of the vitamin D coming in? I know that, you know, sun creams work, but is there a period of time, a few minutes, that you shouldn't have anything on to get the vitamin D? Does it deter?
So I think the research is quite mixed, actually. So some papers suggest that actually it makes no difference, and then other research suggests that actually sunscreen does block vitamin D production in the skin. Personally, I think sunblock does prevent the production of vitamin D in the skin. But I think SPF is really important, and I always advise people to wear it every day because you want to minimise the risk of premature ageing, skin cancer. So you must wear your SPF every single day.
So if you are somebody that, say, can't afford certain foods that are rich in this, supplements, is there, you know, some can't afford supplements, what would you recommend for somebody that doesn't really know what to do and it's winter time and they're not eating the right foods and they're not, you know, full vitamin D? What do you recommend?
So try to have foods that are rich in vitamin D. So that's things like oily fish. And the government does recommend that we have 2 portions a week. But not everyone enjoys the taste of oily fish.
What would an oily fish be, like a mackerel?
So like mackerel, salmon.
Oh, I love salmon, that'll be all right. So you like salmon as well, we'll be fine. Yeah.
So salmon's OK, but then mackerel, I don't know, I don't really love the taste of it. So then it comes back to taking a multivitamin, multimineral, and vitamin D. So it depends on the dose of vitamin D that you have in the multivitamin. So if it's 10 micrograms, which that's the official guidance in the UK, then you're fine. Otherwise, you should take a separate vitamin D supplement.
What about prawns? Do prawns count as an oily fish? I love prawns too.
I don't think they have sufficient vitamin D. No. So it's really things like salmon, mackerel.
We need to be making that effort. OK.
Yeah.
OK, what about, sorry, I have to ask this, the old school generation, mum and dad. Dad's watching again from Australia. Hi, Dad. So, you know, they're not keen on supplements and things like that.
And they wouldn't have taken them, would they?
And they're like, what, you know, how are you going to get a vitamin in this hard capsule? How do we sort of break that stigma as well?
I think maybe looking at the numbers. So we know that a third of Brits are deficient in vitamin D, so we have seriously low levels. And I think perhaps thinking about the health risks. So if you have low vitamin D levels, you know, as a GP, I see people coming in with lots of symptoms, vague symptoms, so fatigue, low energy levels, loss of hair, low mood. So I think convincing people that if you want to feel good within yourself, then taking a supplement is the way forward. And also minimising the risk of serious health conditions. So with severe deficiencies, you can end up with bone conditions.
Right.
And that increases the risk of things like fractures. So I think if we think about mitigating those risks, then really supplements are the way forward, in addition to a healthy, balanced diet.
Okay. So for people who get very overwhelmed by vitamins and supplements, and by people I mean me, we had our producer Sophia this morning. She got out all of her vitamins on the desk in front of her, and she's got supplement pouches and all these vitamins stacked up. I wouldn't even know where to start. So for people who are just very overwhelmed by the whole thing, what would your #1 takeaway be just to feel healthy?
Yeah. So it is overwhelming. Honestly, it's overwhelming. And I myself have all my supplements lined up and I forget to take them. So I think keep it basic, get a multivitamin, get a multimineral, and make sure that it has enough vitamin D in it. If it doesn't, buy a separate vitamin D supplement. Omega-3s are also good to have because they're anti-inflammatory. They're found in oily fish, so we don't consume enough through food. and they're really, really good for brain health, heart health. So go for an omega-3. And then probiotics, you may have heard of them. You know, the good bacteria and fungi in our gut. They're really important for gut health, but also to help lift your mood, to have a robust immune system. So go for a good probiotic. So multivitamins, multiminerals, vitamin D,
Love all that.
omega-3.
It's still a long list.
It's a long list.
OK, what about if you just went outside, even though it's winter, even though it's cold, you encourage people to get outside, will that help as well?
Do you know, I, as a GP, want people to go outside, experience nature. It's good for your mental health, just looking at greenery. So absolutely do it. Be safe, put your SPF on. You know, it's not clear how much sunlight you need to make enough vitamin D. So do go out in nature, but do wear your SPF.
OK, really, really good advice there. Thank you, Dr. Nisa. Really good to see you this morning. Or move to Dubai. That's always an option, but wear SPF.
Wear SPF, absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Nisa. Really good to see you. Now, sticking to the health theme, January is also the time for New Year's resolutions. Have you made a resolution?
No.
No.
I haven't taken the Christmas tree down either,
Well,
so
no,
let's
so
not
you're a little
start.
bit behind. Yes, it's all about ditching the old bad habits and bringing in the new. Now, whether it's a detox from the festive period or a fresh start to the new year, January is often the time where people refresh their lifestyles.
But diets and workout classes aren't the only way, with new alternative methods to lose weight and improve wellness on the horizon.
Yes, a mixture of unconscious persuasion, neuroscience, modern psychology and behavioural science can gently retrain the mind to change the way you think and feel about food and yourself.
That was a lot to say, let alone think of, And we're delighted to be joined now by creator of Slim Pod programme, which does just that, Sandra Roycroft-Davis. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
So, Sandra, tell us a little bit about all of this, because there are a lot of long words there. Neuroscience and unconscious persuasion. How is this going to help people lose weight this January? Because whether we like it or not, there is a big conversation about diets, isn't there, in January?
Absolutely. And let's be clear, dieting doesn't work long term. Otherwise, people wouldn't be doing it year after year after year. So it's literally... you know, the whole thing is really not just about what you eat. It is so much about why you eat. In order to lose weight long term, it needs consistency, and you need to break the old habits. But the old habits are so difficult to break because they're ingrained in your neurology. And that's where the whole neuroscience thing comes in.
Can I just ask a question, though? And I've always wondered why there's so much focus on what we eat and what we don't eat, and actually why we're not just encouraging people to be active. On top of what you're talking about, being active just makes you make better choices overall. So you might not eat everything correctly. See, I don't believe in diets because I think diets... I remember someone telling me the first 3 letters of diets says it all. But obviously you can't sustain it long term. So you're right about that. It's not just about what we eat, but why are we not just encouraging people to be active? Because activity creates better habits all round, mentally and physically. And less focus on
I mean, the thing is, everybody is encouraged to move more, and that is really, really important in so many ways. But it has to become a habit. You have to get the feel-good factor from it. You have to want to do it, not feel you have to do it. You know, all movement is exercise, but we live such a static lifestyle, and this is where my Slim Pod program comes in, because it works within the brain. It reverses, resets, and retrains your old habits so that you can, you can be consistent with your new habits, because consistency is the key, and it's the thing that's missing with so much of this. It really is. If people could be consistent with their healthy eating and lifestyle habits, then there wouldn't be a problem. But our habits are created in childhood. And then we spend half our lives trying to change them. And that's where the difficulty arises.
And also, you know, we have to consider people that can't move and can't, you know, be active, and that side of it as well. But I do definitely think that promoting activity in some way is a really, really good way forward.
Absolutely. absolutely. I mean, there are so many people project activity, and it is a key thing. It really is. But then when the winter months come along, a lot of people just resort to lying around. And same with January, exactly the same thing. Everybody starts January with great intentions, but then, as I've found over the 15 years that I've been doing this, or that I've had the online program, everybody comes to us when they can't keep it up after 4 or 5 weeks.
Some really good tips there. Thank you so much, Sandra Roycroft-Davis. Very good to see you this morning. Now, if health isn't one of your focuses this year, perhaps love could be.
Now, you might be familiar with the Spanish tradition to eat 12 grapes as each bell strikes at midnight on New Year's Eve, which is meant to help you find love in the new year.
Yeah, there's been some amazing videos this week online of people trying to do just that. 12 grapes in those 12 bell strikes. It looks very, very difficult. And supermarkets worldwide have even faced a shortage of grapes as we approach the end of the new year, with lots of people desperate to find love in 2024.
So if you've missed out on your grapes, our next guest might be able to help. Founder and CEO Introductions
and celebrity matchmaker.
Yes, Karen Mooney is what I meant to say.
Karen Mooney, really good
Karen.
to see you.
Thank you for having me, both.
Really good to see you. And that says it all, doesn't it? The grape story. People are so... It's amazing, isn't it? I love that tradition. Yes. Not that I've ever done it myself, but people are obviously desperate to find love in 2024, aren't they? And they'll do anything.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the last few years also have taught us that, life is for living, isn't it? We can all have possessions and things, but really, love and happiness are the most important thing in life, really. And certainly this year is proving to be a really busy year for us at Sarah Eden, as people think about the future.
So for people who are single on New Year's Eve and entering January single, they'd like to meet someone this year, you have matched thousands of people, haven't you? You've seen marriages and really long-term relationships. For you, what are the key things? What means that two people are going to stay together for a very, very long time?
You have to... I mean, we've been in business over 36 years.
Wow.
And we've had double-generation success stories. Obviously, the first couple were married second time round. And our first baby was 32, got married in June, which was lovely. But you have to want similar things in the future. You have to have similar values. And certainly during the pandemic, our age profile went right up. Our oldest member now is in his 90s. And for the older people, you have to be matched financially as well. It's important that, you're financially similar, you have a similar status. But I think thinking in a similar way, and be able to laugh together.
That's so important,
and sit in silence.
Yes.
So how does it work for you? How do you put it together?
So everyone comes to see us. We've got 2 offices, one in Westminster and one in Windsor. And they come along to see us. First of all, we do a lot of vetting on the phone to make sure that they fit in with our members. And when they come along, we'll have a chat with them, go into a bit more detail, a bit about the past, more about the future. Ask them how they see themselves in 3 years' time, what do they want to be doing. Very important if you want to have babies. And then we ask for 3 forms of ID. We ask them to sign a confidentiality contract because we do have lots of very high-profile people. And then we'll make a selection of people we think will be suitable for them.
Do you know what I love about what you've just described there, Karen, when we're talking about what puts 2 people together for life, is we didn't mention attractiveness there, did we? Or chemistry or the butterflies or all that thing that you would maybe think at the start of a relationship would indicate that it's going to go a long way. It's all of that really important, deep-rooted stuff, like values and what you share in your future vision.
Exactly. So what we do is we bring all that in that might come further down the line, and then you can find the butterflies and everything, but at least you know that you're actually potentially a good match for each other because you do share similar values.
I remember someone telling me once that the person you're supposed to be with isn't someone that you just constantly get butterflies when you're around, but it's the person that whatever you're doing, you kind of wish you were doing it with them.
Exactly.
And I love that. I really love that. It's nice,
That's so lovely, isn't it?
I do get butterflies with Emily, but I'm saying if I didn't... Just so
I'm going to
happens
embarrass
that
Pete
we-
But
now
you got
because
to know each other first, didn't you?
Yes.
Then you still
Yeah,
got to-
we were
That's
friends
great,
for 2
that's
years first before we became a couple.
perfect.
And I need to embarrass you now, and Karen, you'll love this. Pete, just before we came on air, was talking about Emily, who is pregnant, quite heavily pregnant at this stage. And he said, oh, it's going to be really embarrassing, guys, but I just need to share, Emily looks absolutely beautiful at the moment. She is glowing. And he said it in front of me and 2 other female producers, and we all went, that's amazing.
No, but she does. She does.
Oh, it's so romantic.
But we based it on friendship, and I think that's so important.
Yeah, so important.
Really,
Karen Mooney, wonderful
so
to have you
much,
on.
Karen.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Stay with us. Loads more to come. We're going through all of the top stories of the day, and we'll be talking about Sunshine Saturday.
yeah.
Don't go anywhere.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It is looking largely dry as high pressure builds in, but we will see frost and ice and fog at night time and temperatures falling well below freezing. We can see on the pressure pattern high pressure building through the rest of the weekend into the beginning of next week. Keen easterly breeze developing across southern counties later. For now, into the evening time, still a west-east split, cloudier skies towards eastern England, some wintry showers for northeast England for a time too. Rain also affecting Shetland, but clearing skies elsewhere. And with recent heavy rain, we'll see some icy stretches developing, particularly across the north and the west, some mist and fog patches too, as temperatures drop below freezing, just staying a bit above where we keep a bit more cloud into Sunday morning. But a bright start for many, cold fog slow to clear across parts of Northern Ireland into Scotland, but plenty of sunshine here by the afternoon. Most places dry. Breeze increasing as we move through the afternoon across southeast England. Here we could see 1 or 2 wintry showers, and also across the Pennines we could see, and the North York Moors we could see 1 or 2 wintry showers. Temperatures on the cold side, 4 to 5 Celsius for many. Into the beginning of next week, very cold again, frost and fog and ice to start the day. Most places dry, but that easterly wind increasing as we move through the day. In the next few days it stays very similar. High pressure keeping it dry, but on the cold side.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning and Happy New Year. I'm Peter Andre alongside the wonderful Ellie Costello. And this is Saturday Morning Live.
Yes, really good to have your company this morning. We are kickstarting the new year with an action-packed show. But let's start with some pretty devastating news, actually, for homes and families across the country. 1,000 properties across England alone have flooded this week amid heavy downpour. Hundreds of flood warnings and alerts still in place. We want to know, have you been affected? If you have been, our thoughts are with you. It's a horrible way to start the new year. Do let us know how you're getting along.
And we'll also be getting to the bottom of what Sunshine Saturday is and why you need to be extra careful when booking those holiday getaways.
Yeah, lots of bargains to be had. And of course, we will be reflecting on the very sad news of the death of Derek Draper with our wonderful Showbiz reporter, Stephanie Tecci. She'll be telling us all about that. It's devastating news.
Very sad. And we'll be sitting down with a former member of one of the 90s top boy bands, Andre Harriott. We'll be talking all things music. He's a great friend of mine, and exactly what he's doing now, you will love what he's doing. He's brilliant.
This show is nothing without you, so do get in touch with us this morning on any of the stories that we're talking about. It might be flooding, it might be Christmas decorations, it might be some of the stories that we're going to talk about with our panel, because they're going to get you going. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Yeah, but before we do anything else, Aaron Armstrong has all your news headlines. Here he is.
Very good morning. It is 11:01. I'm Aaron Armstrong. Some breaking news for you. A 16-year-old boy has been charged with the murder of Harry Pittman, who was stabbed in London on New Year's Eve. The teenager died following what police say was an altercation as crowds gathered on Primrose Hill to watch the fireworks. His sisters described Harry as a good boy with a heart of gold. The suspect, who can't be named, has also been charged with possessing an offensive weapon. Now, hundreds of flood warnings remain in place across England and Wales, with temperatures set to drop below freezing. Forecasters predict that although the heavy rain has largely passed, water levels remain high and icy weather is coming, with the UK Health Security issuing a yellow cold weather alert. The Environment Agency says almost every river in England's reached exceptionally high levels, with some breaking records. Our GB News East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, has this update.
The area behind me should usually be grass and a parkland with the beautiful River Trent in the background, but of course that's not what it looks like today. Extensive flooding here along the River Trent for a lot of small villages, but also for larger towns, including here in parts of Newark-on-Trent. This is Tolney Lane. It should be a clear open road, and the flooding goes for around 100 metres or so as far as I can see. About 1,000 homes across England have been evacuated over the last few days, and a major incident has been declared by Nottinghamshire County Council here in the East Midlands.
Prince Andrew had daily massages during weeks spent at Jeffrey Epstein's home in Florida. That's according to the convicted paedophile's housekeeper. Newly released court documents include testimony from Juan Alessi, who said both Prince Andrew and his then-wife Sarah, the Duchess of York, were friends with Epstein and the now convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. The unsealed files were part of a civil lawsuit against Maxwell, who's serving a 20-year sentence for recruiting underage girls for Epstein. The Duke strenuously denies any wrongdoing. Separately, The Telegraph is reporting the King is prepared to withdraw private funding for the security operation at Prince Andrew's Royal Lodge home. The Chancellor's cast doubt on further tax cuts ahead of the next election. A 2% reduction on national insurance comes into force today, which Jeremy Hunt claims will benefit 27 million people and save a family with two earners nearly £1,000 this year. However, the government's frozen the income tax threshold, pushing many into higher brackets, therefore offsetting the benefits. And the Chancellor admits further cuts are likely.
It was right to support families through COVID and through the cost of living crisis. And yes, taxes had to go up in that period, but we are a Conservative government that wants to bring down taxes because we recognise that families are finding life really tough. It's the start of a process. As Chancellor, if I can afford to go further, I will. I don't yet know if I can, but we want to do this because it helps families and it also helps to grow the economy.
So Jeremy Hunt saying more tax cuts are highly unlikely before the next election, but the chair of the Labour Party, Annalise Dodds, says many people are still paying for previous Tory failure.
We've seen, unfortunately, a huge cost of living crisis in our country. And of course, this is just one aspect of it. As you say, 1.6 million homeowners who are going to be facing an average of £2,880 more on their mortgages when they remortgage. Now, of course, some of that damage, unfortunately, is already done. You know, a large amount of it, sadly for many people, is down to what happened with that Liz Truss crashing of the economy. We immediately saw that feeding in.
The Metropolitan Police is investigating potential fraud offences committed during the Horizon IT scandal. It relates to the wrongful prosecution of hundreds of staff by the Post Office, which in some cases led to prison sentences and bankruptcy. More than 700 people were convicted after flawed accounting software in the Horizon system made it appear money was missing from their branches. Scotland Yard says it's looking at potential fraud arising from money recovered from sub-postmasters as a result of prosecutions or civil actions. Hundreds of people, including some still in Afghanistan, are waiting to resettle in the UK over 2 years after the Taliban takeover. And nearly two-thirds eligible under the Afghan Citizens Resettlement Scheme are yet to be relocated, causing concerns about the slow process. Foreign Secretary David Cameron says 2 flights of eligible Afghans left in December, leaving around 700 people still in the country. Alaska Airlines has grounded all Boeing 737 MAX 9 aircraft after a window and part of the fuselage blew out mid-air. The plane was forced into an emergency landing shortly after taking off from the US state of Oregon. Social media footage shows a window and a portion of the side wall missing from the plane, and no one was hurt. The National Transport Safety Board is investigating the incident. We're live across the UK on your TV, on digital radio, and if you want us on your smart speaker, just say play GB News. Now it's back to Ellie and Pete.
We're going to be joined by a very exciting guest and a good friend of mine later in the show, former member of one of the UK's biggest boy bands. Let's see if you remember this classic. We do.
We love the 90s music here, don't we? That's right, that was Damage with their hit song, Love Guaranteed.
Yeah, and we'll be sitting down with Andre just after 11:30 to hear about all his latest work and why he's moved away from music.
Yeah, and what he's done is incredible. I think you're going to really, really like that story. Speaking of damage, and this is actually very, very serious because over 1,000 properties in England have flooded this week amid heavy downpours, and temperatures look set to plummet this weekend. So we're going to have cold weather on top of all of this flooding.
Unbelievable. Yes, a cold weather alert has been issued by the UK Health Secretary Agency, with temperatures set to plummet over the coming days.
Well, hundreds of homes have been devastated by these floodings following a powerful storm and a week of heavy rainfall, with over 250 flood warnings still in force.
We're joined now by GB News East Midlands reporter Will Hollis, who is deep in the action. Will, what's going on there? Looking tricky.
Yes, well, hundreds of flood warnings still in place around the Midlands and parts of England. You can see why, because just behind me, the River Trent here has burst its banks. You can see swans swimming in an area where it would usually just be open fields along Newark-on-Trent. Well, where we are now in Nottinghamshire, there is a major incident that's been put in place, and the local council is working to help rescue people with Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service, as well as the police. And the story that we hear about is the devastation, but we also talk a lot about the defences. And Michael, you're one person who has put in place a number of defences over the last 25 years that you've lived on Newark-on-Trent, particularly pumps and barriers. Just describe for me, what do you have to do to prepare for a flood like this, and how have you been affected this time?
Well, we're privileged in that we live inside a basin. You can see that the hedge is growing along a low flood bank there, and the wall behind you is built into it. All we really need to do is to keep the flood out there. As long as it doesn't top that defence, we're safe. The difficulty is finding where the water is going to come in, and you have to put defences in place before it happens, and they need backup. We have a number of pumps. They're not all in use at the same time, but we put a block in the outflow of the road drains, which goes through the field into the Trent. There's an inspection chamber partway along there, and we put a flap valve in it so that keeps the water in the flooded field from coming up the road drains.
Michael, for people that have flooded and they don't have the same defences as you, from somebody that's experienced in defending from floods, what is your advice for people that are starting to flood for the first time or repeatedly flood?
I think you need to look at keeping it out of your house, obviously. We have flood boards that we put over the doors if we realise that it is really going to be a very high flood, like this one and the one in 2000. We don't put them up every time the Trent gets high. It's a matter of degree, of anticipating just how bad it might be. And you need to have the boards ready, put them in.
Michael, you're one of the fortunate ones this time, but lots of people here in Newark-on-Trent and across the county are in a really difficult position, and the council, as well as Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service, are out today helping people in those difficult situations.
Well, thank you very much there in Nottingham, and thank you for showing us Michael's home as well, and send him all of our love. It's a very British reaction there to flooding, protecting his own home there, making do and mending. But should it even have to be that case, that you have to protect your own home and build your own flood defences? Very, very difficult. You'll have an opinion on that. Do let us know at home, gbviews@gbnews.com. Let's speak now to meteorologist John Ketley. John, very good to see you this morning. So many people commenting in our inbox on email and also on Twitter saying this seems to be happening so much more regularly than what we've seen before. Why is that?
Yeah, that's probably absolutely true, actually. We do seem to be getting it worse each year that goes by. We really need to go back to probably about 2000. I think your chap, Mr. Johnson, there down in Newark, mentioned 2000 as being a record breaker as far as the autumn winds and rain were concerned. But we have actually seen a very, very wet end to this past year, and that's continued into the start of January as well. So we've seen a very wet year. We've seen the wettest year since 2012. It seems to be a cumulative effect. We're getting more and more of these extremely wet years, autumns or winter. Sometimes it's the earlier part of the year as well, or into the summer even. So they are becoming more common. That's all symptomatic, of course, of the warming world, the global warming, which we talk about all the time. This has been talked about now for about the past 25 years, and it continues to get ever worse. But of course, global warming isn't always going to be the same template year after year. We've seen at the same time, we've seen some very hot summer weather, and equally we've seen some very wet summer weather too. So it does seem to be that we get the worst conditions during the autumn and early winter, and that's the sort of thing that we've seen in the past few months.
OK, John Ketley, really good to see you this morning. Thank you so much for your time. Now, let's welcome back our panel, the author, columnist and presenter Tonya Buxton and comedian and presenter Tommy Sandu. Really good to see you both this morning. Look, before we get into some lighter stories, I did just want to reflect the breaking news in the past few minutes or so. Harry Pittman, the 16-year-old who was killed on Primrose Hill on New Year's Eve, a 16-year-old has now been charged with that. It's such devastating news, isn't it, for his family?
It's really devastating for his family and also all the people that knew him. So my niece knew him. So my brother came round and I said, oh, you know, how are the kids? And he said his daughter was devastated and didn't know how to deal with it at all. They were on Primrose Hill. I mean, actually, my niece and my son decided to go to Alexandra Palace rather than Primrose Hill this year. So they could have been in the vicinity. And Primrose Hill was full of families, people with pushchairs. You know, it's not where you'd expect this to happen because everyone was watching the fireworks. And this altercation happened, and the knife crime in this country has become out of control, and the people that are not just dying of the crimes, but doing the crimes now. A 16-year-old child has been taken in. It's so worrying and it's so hurtful, and it just feels too close to home.
Yeah.
Too close to home.
That is what strikes you, isn't it, Tommy? It is the ages that we are talking about here. I mean, when you see the pictures of Harry Pittman, it's a boy, it's a child.
Yeah, and sadly, probably even younger than that. Look, you're going to speak to Andre from Damage, who's working, well, formerly from Damage, who's working with, you know, knife crime and things. So he'll have a lot more of an insight into this than us. But the sad thing is, this isn't, like you said, this isn't a gang scene. This is Primrose Hill. This is a view spot. Like you said, where I've gone with and I've gone with pram and pushed a pram up there and all that. And so you go with your family and you think you're going to get a view. So this isn't like, well, look, we don't know what the situation is. We don't know enough about the backstory of the boy who actually committed the crime. But what's so sad is there are so many different factors that are leading towards very young people carrying weapons. Why is that happening? Why is that happening more now? Why did this boy feel the need to take a knife to Primrose Hill on New Year's Eve? That's insane, and that's the heart of the problem.
And you know, as a parent, your biggest fear is on both sides.
Right.
You know, about your child carrying something like that or doing this terrible act, but also being the parent of having fear of your child being in the wrong place at the wrong time and something happening, and it's getting very, very, very scary.
And sadly, it's the kids that are sweet and lovely that get caught up in it because they're not reading the situation. They're not from that street background. Look, we grew up in East End of London. I'm not saying we're part of any kind of gangs or crimes, but we could see what was going on around us. You could feel the kind of, hold on, this is all just suddenly getting a bit hairy. Let's just get out of here. Let's just go home. But the kids that are kind of oblivious to that were just there at Primrose Hill, watching the fireworks, maybe give someone an awkward look. Someone looks at him and they see him as a soft target. It's horrible. And what's sad is one bad decision of carrying that knife, one bad decision of using that knife, and it's split moment, peer pressure influence, society influence stuff, and everyone's life has changed. No one recovered. It's horrible. It really is.
Really scary times. Right, let's go to The Guardian now, a new generation. Now, Jodie Foster, she's never been scared to say her mind, right? She said, Gen Z, they can be really annoying. Now, obviously, the problem with this statement, she might be right, but the problem is that Gen Z will probably say that the older generation are really annoying. So we've got both sides here. What are your thoughts on that?
I completely agree with her. and it's not just the Gen Z that are really annoying. For me, I put a lot of the blame on the parents of the Gen Z. Because they haven't parented their children enough. You know, when my children come back to me with feels instead of facts, I have no time for it. Just
because your kids will be Gen Z, will they?
Yeah. So, and I just won't tolerate it. I will not put up with it, you know. And also, I think the work ethic is, you know, it's missing in the younger kids. They don't get it, you know. It's like Jodie Foster said here. She said, you know, they're coming late and they want to leave early. They're not really feeling it today, so they want to leave early. I mean, can you imagine going into work or being lucky enough to be mentored by someone like Jodie Foster and say, oh, I'm not really feeling it today, I want to go home early? It's their whole attitude is wrong. It's wrong.
I think you're jealous, Tonya. I think you're jealous because they're getting away with it. They're getting away with the things that we wanted to get away with. We all want to go, oh, I'll leave that. I can't. I'm not feeling it today. But you're right. We got whooped. We got whooped back in the day.
Boy, did we get whooped.
For people,
did we.
For people that don't know, and again, I can only think of my dad watching this, what is Gen Z? Let's just make it clear for people that don't know. Can you just explain it?
What's the age range for Gen Z?
I think it's 97 onwards or something.
Right.
If you're born from 97 onwards.
I think onwards. So Gen Z.
So back in the day, right, I got the cane at school twice.
I got the cane from the nuns.
Did you?
The ruler. Oh, God,
I got a thing called a plimsoll pudding, which is where the teacher had a plimsoll. He was the deputy head, and he used to slap us with the plimsoll, right, really hard, right? So we got the plimsoll pudding. Now, some people won't agree with that, whatever. Didn't do us any harm, just on that day. Yeah. But we've now got to the point where I agree with you, Tonya, where parents, as parents, we're letting our kids say and do whatever they want, and because we can't say anything about it, we can't, do anything about it. We're just,
but you know
it's causing problems.
But you know what happened, Peter, is that you end up not liking your own children. I've seen it in my peers. You know, they say, well, how have you managed it that your children are so polite? How has that happened? You think, well, how have you managed not to have polite children? You know, it is down to us. You know, you and I, with your children, with everybody's children, it's down to us. It is our responsibility. So when our kids get to adults, if they're not pleasant, if they're not polite, they're not nice, that's our fault. I take that as my responsibility. And I think a lot of parents don't. They say, oh, you know, recently I was at someone's house and their son is 15 and he didn't even look up. And his mum said, oh, he's shy. And I thought, shy? Let me give you shy now.
Are parents making excuses for their kids' bad behaviour?
They might well be. And look, I've got an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old, two boys, and I sometimes think, what world are they going to be in 10 years' time? And there's no point me being too tough on them. I sometimes blame, I think, the broader picture of society. I think they've got a lot of information around them. It's not their fault sometimes. There's more political unrest. There's more social unrest. There's more things to stimulate them and mess with their heads, which is what might be with
manners.
No, you're right.
Basic good manners.
Yeah, you've got to check that.
You're not shy. No. You're not, you know, and being lazy, having chores at home. It doesn't matter what your station is in life. Yeah. Having chores at home and carrying out your chores and having basic good manners are what all parents should be teaching.
You know, the Buxton's a tight ship. Yeah, you know, it's a tight ship in their house, you know that.
I remember hearing somewhere, this is a brilliant analogy, I know we've got to move on, but someone said that back in the generations before, from us backwards, if you saw the prize at the top of the mountain, you knew you had to climb that mountain no matter what. And if you fell and hurt yourself, your dad would be like, oh, you want that prize? You better keep climbing. Yeah, but I'm tired. Don't get the prize then. Now, and it's not this generation's fault, it's just the way things are because everything's so instant. They see the prize at the top of the mountain, but they don't see the mountain. No. And this is the problem. It's just like, I want it now.
Instant gratification.
But it's not their fault because everything is instant. Yeah. You know? So it's a catch-22.
Well, you will have an opinion on that at home. gbviews@gbnews.com. Are Gen Z annoying? Do let us know what you think. Look, we've got 1 more minute, so I just want to ask you about this. These are controversial comments from Lululemon founder. Now, if you aren't familiar with Lululemon, it's like an athleisure brand, so leggings and gym wear and all that sort of thing.
Very expensive leggings.
Very expensive leggings. They're about 50, 60 pounds. Don't get me started. But anyway, the founder has said some women are simply too fat to wear their leggings. What do you make of this, Tonya?
Well, you know, so what I think is, what he said is, I think the definition of a brand is that you are not for everyone. You're not everything to everyone. So, I mean, admittedly, I can't afford these leggings. They cost about £100 for a pair of leggings. But I kind of see where he's coming from. I don't like the way he's put it. Because, you know, I'm very pro-health. And I think sometimes what's happened is this beautiful body, you know, whatever positivity is going to do a lot of damage to young people as they get older and have health issues. Because we do know being fat and obese and overweight has ramifications. So it's all very well having body positivity, but you've got to understand what that means. So he said it in a horrible way. I don't like the way he said it, but I get his point.
OK,
yeah, I think he shot himself in the foot. But let's just remind ourselves that Chip Wilson, this guy, is known for saying controversial comments. He's done it over the years before. He said other things about the brand and who it's for. Lululemon have tried to distance themselves from him as much as possible, and he kind of stepped down from his roles, but he's kept his share in the company. So they kind kind of just keep him in the background because he's like that mouthy, drunk uncle that kind of pipes up and down and says dumb stuff at Christmas time. But I kind of get where he's coming from because he wants to kind of go, hey, man, we're for sexy, young, hot people. But he shot himself in the foot. It's a dumb thing to say because actually there's a lot of people that aren't sure whether they do look good. It's not just about beautiful people that all look fantastic and they all know it. They don't know. Sometimes I need to be reminded how beautiful I am, right? So, but in that respect, so those 50-50 people that are like, oh, do I look good in these? Do I not? They might go, oh, maybe Lululemon's now not for me. So he's just lost customers.
Yeah, but
it's a silly move.
And also you've got to think that some people feel so underconfident, and if you're putting them in a category of like, you're not good enough for this, that's just putting you more and more into this hole, you know?
Silly thing to say.
Anyway.
Yeah, Tommy, Tonya, very good to see you. Thank you so much. Do stay with us. Still to come, we're going to be joined by a 90s heartthrob who dominated the charts. No, not you, Pete, not this time. He's going to be talking about all of his latest work.
But up next, we'll be getting to the bottom of Sunshine Saturday. Where is it? It's Saturday. I can't see it.
Yeah, where's the sun? But there are bargains to be had. Stay tuned for that.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Thank you so much for your company this morning. So many of you have been emailing in, haven't you? Lots of you talking about the flooding.
Yeah, so Angela says that man in Newark who was successful in defending his house from flooding needs to be given his own podcast to give advice to other people. He seems to know more than the councils.
Yeah, I believe his name was Michael. He was absolutely incredible, defending his own home against flooding after it had been flooded so many times before. Just absolutely incredible man.
Chris says the reason for the tragic flooding all over the country is the responsibility of the government agencies, councils and farming communities. Somehow we've got to get a grip of this with a proper countrywide management and maintenance strategy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will be feeling that this is happening time and time again. They want to see something done to prevent this tragic flooding all around the country. These scenes, they will say, feel far too familiar now. And Teresa says, I suppose that aid is pouring into the country to assist with major flooding. Oh, wait, we only give aid. It doesn't seem that we receive any. Well, do keep your emails coming in on that, or indeed any of the stories that we're talking about today. gbnews@gbnews.com. Now, we have already discussed the importance of sunshine for our health and well-being and getting vitamin D, but clearly this is the time of year to realise this, as today is called Sunshine Saturday.
Sounds good. Sunshine Saturday is the first Saturday after the Christmas and New Year break, and typically one of the most popular days of the year to book a holiday.
Sounds good, doesn't it? 86% of people agree that going on holiday has a positive impact on our well-being, and more than you might think are on the hunt for a bit of winter sun.
Yeah, joining us now to discuss this is travel expert Simon Calder.
And Simon, so many bargains to be had out there.
Well, there are, if you're travelling immediately, there's some astonishing stuff out there. So, yes, Sunshine Saturday, absolutely natural. It's the first opportunity for a lot of people after Christmas and New Year to think, well, we've got to have something to look forward to now. What better than a holiday? And the anticipation of a holiday is really important. Of course, many people who are watching are constrained to school holidays, typically because they've got school-aged children, or they work in education, and they're the people who will be paying a fortune. But if you're able to travel off-peak, there are some amazing deals out there. Next Friday, for instance, and I've just checked this in the past 5 minutes, you can go from Gatwick to Hammamet in Tunisia, and you're going to be able to spend a week there half-board, so you get breakfast and dinner, plus your flights, your luggage, your transfers, your accommodation, and that's just going to cost you £261.
Wow, it's incredible, isn't it? We're seeing some other bargains on screen right now, so there are some out there.
Yeah,
but you do have to be careful, don't you, Simon?
You do, because of course there's lots of possible traps to fall into. Best thing you can do is go to a real travel agent and ask them, because then they'll sell you typically a traditional package holiday which comes with gold-plated consumer protection. Now, of course, many people want to put together their own trips, and certainly if you are looking at fares in the next few weeks, for instance, I found Bristol to Malaga for under £40, or Birmingham to Faro in the Algarve for that sort of money. It's just extraordinary, the deals that are out there. But you need to be aware that if anything goes wrong, then you could be in trouble. But also that £40 or less is going to be without a big piece of baggage, without having your seat selected and so on. And personally, I'm perfectly happy to take just a small backpack, fits in with all the budget airlines rules, and that means that I'm travelling for less than £40.
I should be more like you, Simon.
Yeah, well,
I have my phone here. I'm happy for us to book somewhere right now and do this right now. Shall we go somewhere?
OK.
Have you got your backpack with you?
I haven't, and the trouble is, if you want to travel
he does always have his passport.
Immediately after the show, you'll probably be spending quite a lot on that, because a lot of airlines will put the prices up very, very high at the last few minutes. But you probably go to it somewhere tomorrow. So
why don't you plan something together? I think that's a lovely idea. Simon, whilst we've got you, we don't have very long, but we have seen this incredible footage of this Boeing 737, which has had to do an emergency landing. Tell us a bit more about this.
OK, well, this is a Boeing 737 MAX 9. It belongs to Alaska Airlines. It was on a routine flight from Portland. It took off, it was climbing, and suddenly an entire panel on the port side, the left-hand side of the aircraft pops out. Now, that looks like an emergency exit, and that's because it is a deactivated space where you could have an emergency exit. Alaska Airlines, who bought this plane just a couple of months ago, haven't put it there, but it is raising serious concerns. The airline has grounded those aircraft while it checks them. There may well be other checks, but bear in mind that no UK airlines or any airlines flying to and from the UK, as far as I know, uses that type of aircraft. There are Boeing 737 MAX aircraft, but they're the 8 rather than the 9. So don't panic. And of course, it's a second really serious event we've had this week.
This week,
Japan Airlines. Tragedy in which 5 Coast Guard lost their life, but extraordinary that 379 people were saved.
Absolutely, Simon.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much indeed.
Worst nightmare possible.
Yes.
Lots more to come on the show today, but first, let's get the news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
It's 11:33. Very good morning to Aaron Armstrong here in the GB newsroom. A 16-year-old boy has been charged with the murder of Harry Pittman, who was stabbed in London on New Year's Eve. The teenager died following what police say was an altercation as crowds gathered on Primrose Hill to watch the fireworks. His sisters described Harry as a good boy with a heart of gold. The suspect, who can't be named, has also been charged with possessing an offensive weapon. Hundreds of flood warnings remain in place across England and Wales, with temperatures set to drop below freezing. The Environment Agency says flooding will continue to be an issue with exceptionally high and, in some cases, record river levels. And icy weather is coming, with a cold alert in place until Friday. Prince Andrew had daily massages during weeks spent at Jeffrey Epstein's home in Florida, according to the convicted paedophile's housekeeper. Newly released court documents include testimony from Juan Alessi, who said both Prince Andrew and his then-wife, Sarah, Duchess of York, were friends with Epstein and now convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. The unsealed files were part of a civil lawsuit against Maxwell, who's serving a 20-year sentence for recruiting underage girls for Epstein. The Duke denies any wrongdoing. Meanwhile, the Telegraph's reporting Prince Andrew's facing a multi-million-pound bill for security if he wants to remain at Royal Lodge on the Windsor estate, because the King is preparing to withdraw private funding. And the Chancellor's cast doubt on further tax cuts before the next election. A 2% reduction on national insurance comes into force today. Jeremy Hunt claims that will benefit 27 million people and save a family with 2 earners nearly £1,000 this year. However, the government has frozen the income tax threshold, which has pushed many into higher brackets. And for many, that will offset the benefits. But the Chancellor admits further cuts are unlikely. You get more on all of our stories on our website, gbnews.com, where I'll be back with more news at the top of the next hour.
Thanks, Aaron. It's time now for your weekly dose of showbiz news, and we're delighted to have showbiz journalist Stephanie Tecci with us. A very, very, very sad news.
It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You know, I was in the newsroom yesterday, and literally within a minute when Kate Garraway put that post up, my heart just broke, and I was trying not to show everybody that I was actually crying because I feel like I've been on this. Obviously, I don't want to say it, but I feel like I'd been on this journey with Kate in that sense, because she's documented so much of what her life has been like, looking after Derek. Like, she's had to give him 24-hour care around the clock. And you just think, what a brave woman. And I just think, as a new year, I'm thinking of her 2 children. I'm just thinking of the family. It's just such a, you know, when he wasn't a celebrity in that sense, but when someone high profile like this dies, it does tug at your heartstrings a bit. And you just think, you know, he didn't die from the long COVID, which he did have for over the past 4 years. He suffered from a heart attack. But still, it just feels like a battle that most people felt like he was going to be okay. And, you know, my heart just goes out to her a lot.
It absolutely does. And I don't think you're alone, Stephanie, in feeling emotion. I think, well, we both felt it, didn't we, yesterday when Kate announced it. I think her post itself on Instagram was very, very emotional. But I think you're right that so many people, she let us all in with those documentaries and talking about caring for Derek and the challenges that had. And I think where she's been such a devoted wife, we all feel like we've kind of watched them go through this together as a family, and we all feel this loss.
It is, and I think as well, she's shone a light on carers in general, because I think those are kind of like the unsung heroes when it comes to these kind of situations, and the fact that financially, I think she was paying a lot to look after him, and just all that kind of stuff, the physical and the mental and the emotional side of it, I think it's not to be underestimated, and I think that's why many people have been left heartbroken by this.
And let's not forget, you know, she was caring for Derek. She was also the mother to the children, having to look after the children. And what they're going through at a really traumatic time, seeing their father decline like that. So she was mum wife, working, of course, and now she has to become dad as well. And honestly, I can't think of a greater pain and confusion that she must be going through. And obviously, our thoughts are with her whole family. And Derek, of course.
And the thing is, there's so many Kates around the country, in the sense there's so many, and I think that's why she was so vocal about it, because there's so many families whose lives have changed due to long COVID and other long-term illnesses, and I think that's what she wanted the public to be aware of, that there's just so many carers and there's so many families who will go through similar things day in and day out. So, as you can imagine, both the entertainment world, the political world, there's been so many tributes that have been paid to Derek.
Yeah, sounds like such an amazing person. And Pete, you know Kate personally, don't you? And you say she's exactly as she comes across.
Exactly as she comes across. And, you know, even when she talks to you about personal things, which she has done, which, of course, a lot of us she has spoken to that we would never talk about. But what I noticed with her is that she still managed to smile through it. Even at the hardest bits that she was talking about, she still managed to get out there and do it. And she's a real inspiration. And, you know, like I said, every time I've met her, she's just exactly how she comes across.
And, you know, that's very rare. And I think, you know, when celebrities are going through these kind of battles, they tend to keep quiet about it because they just don't want the public attention. They don't want the scrutiny as well, which does, in a weird way, comes with these kind of situations. So she's been very strong about
And don't forget, you know, I remember she was being trolled by people for telling the story, for getting the awareness out there, for explaining. And I thought, can you give this woman a break? Like, what more do you want to go through, you know?
Even us talking about on air, I've seen some of the tweets we've got, and there's been some trolls as well, and I'm like, someone's died here. Can we just concentrate on that and just, like, commend her bravery and whatever your views is, just like, there is a family in mourning, and, you know...
And his bravery too, you know?
Yeah,
and,
it is
you know,
such a sad story, isn't it? It really, really is. Stephanie, got a happier story to look forward to tomorrow, which is the Golden Globes.
The Golden Globes are back. You know, we had the actor strike last year, the Hollywood actor strike, and Hollywood was brought to a standstill for almost 3 to 4 months, and that had a knock-on effect on the industry, on films, award shows, because a part of the strikes were they couldn't do red carpets, they couldn't do no promotions or anything. So there was hardly any big Hollywood showbiz moments. But tomorrow we're going to see the Golden Globes, which is going to be the first big awards of the season. People like it because whoever wins is a good indicator of who's going to be winning at the Oscars, at the BAFTAs. We've got Barbie and we've got Oppenheimer, which are both up for 8 awards each. So we're going to be seeing a lot of stars that are going to be coming out tomorrow, including Leonardo DiCaprio. He starred in Killers of the Flower Moon, and he's up for Best Actor as well. So it's going to be nice to see Hollywood out, and obviously, Ellie, it's all about the dresses and
I was
the
about to say, you look like Barbie
and
today.
all the style, I know. With my hot
Talking
pink.
about Barbie, she's a Gold Coast girl, you know.
Is she?
Margot is a Gold Coast girl from where we grew up. Although I didn't know her, but you know, it's a very small town.
I feel like she's like you.
amazing.
I feel like she's just like this honorary Brit that I forget that she's got the Aussie background as well.
Just all it's done is made us wish we looked like Ken.
Oh gosh, you are a Ken. You're Ken enough. You are enough.
He's
Pete.
Ken enough.
Seriously.
More like a candle.
Stop. Oh, do you know what I was reading this morning, which I quite enjoyed, was apparently the Golden Globes are like, for these celebrities and for Hollywood, the more fun version of the Oscars, because it's a free bar. I didn't know that. And they just get...
They're going to get smashed. And to be honest, because it's going to be all eyes, like apparently I was reading today as well that a lot of the celebrities have been told to be on good behaviour, because, you know, in the past we've had the Oscars with Will Smith and that slap. And they haven't been at an award ceremony in so long. So it's going to be interesting to see how it comes along.
Who's going to be hosting? I want Ricky Gervais or Kevin Hart. They're the two people that I think would make it the most fun.
I think they would make it fun, but I think they also know that they will be loose-lipped and they'll be making fun of quite a lot of people. It's actually going to be presented by a man called Joy Coy, who's a comedian, so I think he's going to be quite funny. But, you know, these awards have had a lot of controversy as well, because they were taken off air last year because they are sponsored by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, and they didn't have a single black member, so they got taken off air. A lot of celebrities boycotted it. So
and Ricky made a point of that on the last one he hosted.
Yeah, so this year they'll be back in action, hopefully.
OK, lots to look forward to. Stephanie Tetchy, always wonderful to see you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you very much.
Great show.
Now, do stay with us. Lots still to come. We're going to be joined in the studio by another 90s heartthrob. Move over, Pete. We're going to be talking to Damage's Andre Harriott and his amazing work that he's doing now for young people.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Thank you so much for all your company this morning. So many of you have been sending in emails. Of course, we've been talking about January. Lots of people are going on a diet. Andy says, staying healthy is simple. Healthy eating, regular exercise. That's what you were saying. I'm sick of people moaning and saying they're fat. You're fat for a reason. Bad diet and lazy.
I see.
So
no, that's not what I was saying.
You wouldn't say that much, but exercise was the point that you agreed with.
Everyone's got an opinion, and that's the way it is. I do agree with the exercise. I think you need to exercise.
You think more people should be exercising?
Balance your food out. That's my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
Now it's time to be joined by a former member of one of the UK's biggest boy bands. Now, see if you can remember this classic. He's a great guy. So much to talk about, but have a listen to this first. Yes, we're talking about Damage.
Yes, Damage were a UK R&B boy band who achieved mainstream successes in the 90s. They sold 4 million records worldwide.
And they're still touring, by the way, but that's not why our guest is here. Our next guest has stepped away from the music scene in some way, went back to uni, retrained, and his latest work to help children at risk within socially disorganised communities. What a legend.
Yeah, we're delighted to be joined by the man himself, Andre Harriott. Really good to see you. Welcome to the studio. Welcome to Saturday Morning Live. Yeah. Where do we begin with you? What is your story? We've gone from music to this incredible work that you do for young people. Talk to us about
So I've known Pete for maybe 30 years now through the music industry. But yeah, I left Damage in the early 2000s, became a criminologist and a sociologist, then did my master's in organisational consultancy and leadership using systemic and psychodynamic approaches. It basically means looking after the well-being and mental health of people within organisations and professions. I then set up my own organisation, the Liminality Group, and we work with about 1,000 children per annum who are most at risk of being involved in criminality, whilst working with many children in custodial institutions who commit some of the most serious offences.
And what made you want to do this? Because obviously. And this is what gets me, you know, you had such huge success in the 90s. You still tour. I see you boys touring all the time. Of course. But yet, you, instead of something that's focused on you, you've gone and created something to focus on others. What made you want to do that?
So my why was after travelling the world, Pete, I came back to the area that I was raised in, South East London, Lewisham, and some of my friends had gone on to do really great things, have families, experience social mobility, and some of the friends I had gone to school with hadn't done so well. And I really wanted to give children and young adults the opportunity to see that the world was much bigger than their local area. I came in with the hero mentality. As long as they meet me and hear my fabulous stories of travelling the world, they're not going to want to offend or commit, criminal acts again. I was completely wrong. And I got to see that the systemic issues behind why children and young adults commit offences is so multifaceted that I really spent the last 20 years trying to do something different, trying to put a different spin on how we can prevent people getting involved in offending and also deter children and young adults getting involved at very early stages.
Well, you are absolutely incredible, what you do. I think so many people will be really quite moved about what you've done with your life now and what you continue to do for young people. Tell us about a little bit about the young people that you meet. Where are they coming from and how are they feeling when you're taking them away on some of these incredible trips that you do?
Yeah, so we normally work with children in local communities, again, who are most at risk of being excluded from school, and that's through our charitable arm, the Liminality Trust. And we take them on residentials to the Lake District, to Scotland. About 90% of the boys and girls that we work with go on to further education and not involved in any criminality and really get to experience a life free from some of the challenges within socially disorganised communities.
And we can see some of these videos now. I mean, for lots of these kids, have they left the city before?
Some of them haven't. Some of them haven't left the city, and some of them, this is their first time of travelling in the way that they do. And we also, we keep tabs on them. So 3-4 years after we work with them, we're still in their lives. We're still holding groups and focus groups with them, and really ensuring that they've got support from us from years to come. I mean, that's the positive side. That's that's the side that we get the most return on immediately. The work that we do in custodial institutions with children who will be spending sentences many years beyond their years that they've been alive. For some of the most serious offences, it's a different type of work that we do with them. When you work with a 16-year-old who may not come home till they're 35, 36, it's a different type of work. But also, we're really invested in ensuring that we reduce the risk to the public, and we ensure that when they come home, there's been a shift in their thinking and behaviour.
So you're a strong believer in rehabilitation,
Rehabilitation all the way, absolutely. There's a balance between punishment, but you must also have a deterrent, which the sentences are delivered within courts. But I am definitely on the side of therapeutic interventions and rehabilitative approaches, because all of these children will be coming home at some point. So we have to do something to ensure the three of us are safe when they come home. That's where our organisation sits.
And you've got so many experiences to draw on, don't you? I mean, you've had huge success. You've been in this massive boy band. You ruled the 90s along with Pete.
Yes.
And now you're doing this incredible work with young people. people. I mean, what do they make of you and your background?
Well, interestingly, they don't know much about the background.
Wow.
So because they weren't born at the time, so their parents will know. But, you know, I do tell them as the relationship builds, so they get to know me as an individual. But as I was saying to some of the contributors earlier, it's about having, you know, multifaceted things that you've done, which can be inspirational to different children, young adults that you work with.
They must find you so inspiring.
I would like to think so. It's not just me. You know, there's other people that work with me, but I think that the years that I've spent developing myself academically means it's not just about me. It's also about me bringing something to them, which helps to shift them in terms of their thinking, their behaviour, and their approaches to why they committed these crimes.
And that's why I really wanted Andre on the show, because I knew, you know, knowing him from music, but I knew I'd spent time with him and he'd explained what he was doing, and I thought, more people should hear this. More people should hear what you're doing, because there are people out there that need help. You know, they need help because...
Well, we've seen this morning, haven't we?
Yeah, they can't.
With
they
Harry
don't know
Pittman.
where they're going, what they're doing. People are confused.
Yeah, I think it's really important to humanise people who get involved in alternative lifestyles that can involve crime, etc. All three of us, if we hadn't had the support networks that we have, could have made decisions that could have changed our life trajectory. Many of the children and adults I work with come from socially disorganised communities where they have witnessed consistent and perpetual, highly traumatic events, and it shapes and designs the way they respond to incidents. It's the way they respond to thinking about their futures, to how they develop families. So part of my role is to really help them to, you know, understand how adverse childhood experiences collide to create the type of individual you are, and then move them on into a better future.
You know what, mate? You're a true inspiration. And now, when you guys ever go and see Damage Live, just remember...
You'll know there's another branch.
There's
of what
another,
I do.
A whole
there's
other
another
story to what you do. Andre, wonderful to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for all the incredible work that you do. And thank you so much at home for joining us. We'll be back next Saturday.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It is looking largely dry as high pressure builds in, but we will see frost and ice and fog at night time, and temperatures